Our average rates increase this year of 11.2 is around 5% below the average of all councils. The cost pressures for councils for the next couple of years do remain until we see some normality. And it's worth reminding people that it's not just this year. Rates are high next year as well, not as high as this year, but things will settle down, and that's the environment that we're in. Most people I speak to understand and are philosophical and will get on with life. Some people who understand and are philosophical are already finding it hard, and another dollar to find for rates is going to be a very real challenge. Today you will see a rates remission for properties and people impacted by rates affordability in addition to the Ministry of Social Development rates rebate. I feel for all our community who are feeling the pressure of an unaffordable cost of living, so please inquire about both these if you feel you are in this situation. As I read through the long-term plan, it still astonishes me the amount of activities our council undertakes, and it's worth reminding us all about what we do. The purpose of local government is quite simply to enable democratic decision-making and action by and on behalf of communities, to promote the social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being of communities now and in the future. And those are really headline statements for a lot of activities that we do. So the core jobs that councils carry out every day on behalf of our community, I'm going to read them out just to give us all and our community an appreciation about what we do. We provide roads, footpaths, walking tracks and cycleways so you can get around our district, fresh water to drink, disposal of rubbish, stormwater and sewage, provide upkeep of sports grounds and parks, plus libraries and community spaces, keep the local community informed about its activities, account for or manage assets for which we own or are responsible, raise funds for local purposes by way of rates, charges and fees and investments, loans and grants, manage a wide range of risks. In addition, the other services we provide include pensioner housing, health inspection, liquor licensing, dog registration, parking controls, noise control, litter control, civil defence, building consents, land use consents, land subdivision, and I'm sure the list goes on. Most businesses focus on one or two products or services, and the local government is forced to, well not forced to, it's required to look at such a wide breadth of services and activities. So it's a good opportunity to say thank you again to our council staff for two things. Firstly, your continued dedication to the above listed services for the betterment of our community, and secondly, a thank you once again to all staff who have been involved in the long-term plan, as well as our elected members. Also, thank you once again to our community for engaging with the process more than you ever have. We will now revisit our vision for Whanganui to 2050, which I'm excited about. I believe Whanganui has reached a level of maturity that gives us permission to break any shackles. It means we need to be aspirational about our future whilst we navigate these current times. We need to think of ourselves as citizens of the world and not just a regional town. Today you will also see the results of the midterm review of our governance structure. The original intention of the governance structure was to see increased delegation and decision-making ability at committee level, as well as ensure an outcome focus, meaning a clear line of sight to delivery of outcomes that impact across at least one of the four well-beings. This has seen particular changes in the CCO and Economic Development Committee, which has an independent chair, meaning Whanganui Holdings will now be wound down with all council-controlled organisations reporting directly to this committee. The committee's role is to provide governance oversight and performance of the council's CCOs, including the strategy, direction and priorities of all CCOs and CCO statements of intent and letters of expectation. The other main change is a ramped up Projects and Grants Committee, and I understand that this is the only type of committee across all councils in New Zealand. However, the intent and purpose is important. Just as the CCO and ED committee give stronger and clearer governance insights into our CCOs and ED functions, this committee gives stronger and clearer governance insights into projects, community aspirations and grants. I'm especially excited about the possibility of the portfolios, which are not part of the formal governance structure, but are, if you like, a bridge between governance and the community. They give the community a single point of contact on issues that have strong public interest, bring elected representatives closer to the community, and create a consistent approach to community engagement and interface. Portfolios reflect the diversity of our district, and anyone can find a place in these. They also represent an entry point for our hopes and aspirations of our district. Today is a milestone. Tomorrow is a new start with a new governance structure, including a new portfolio structure, a new LTP to deliver, and a new vision to develop and articulate. I hope your individual and collective energy levels are strong. Thank you. All right.
So just before we get started, we just have some additional information we need to see.
Okay.
So it's just the resolutions on the screen.
Right. Okay, we've got some additional information. So that the following additional information is tabled with item 7.2 minutes, 5th of June 2024. Council LTP deliberation minutes. 8.1 adoption of the long-term plan 24 to 34 and the bullet points underneath that, which include draft summary document, 10-year plan 24 to 34, full document final, schedule of changes, and the development contributions policy. And 8.6 Mayor's mid-term governance review, adoption of the governance manual 22 to 25, third iteration. So these are changes to the document, slight changes.
Yeah, just your community portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah, community portfolios in terms of reference 22 to 25 and public community portfolios 22 to 25. I'm happy to move those. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Josh. All right. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. There are no public forums or deputations, I don't think. No. Okay. Is this item? Oh, 7. Sorry, 7 point and 7.2.
Same thing.
Okay.
Can do them as well.
Right. Okay, so item 7.1, confirmation of minutes. There are 2 lots of minutes, so that the minutes of the council meeting held on 5 June and 25 June 24 are confirmed as a true and correct record. Councillor Kate, Councillor Ross to second. Okay, all those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. So I assume there were no changes or reflections on those. Okay. Now we move to public reports. So we move to item 8, which is first item is the adoption of the long-term plan 2024 to 2034. As I said in the message there, this is a milestone, and so I think you know, it's worth celebrating this, the achievement of our council, our elected members, and also the community's involvement as well. And I think we've found a really nice balance of doing the basics, but also looking into the future as well, and running a responsible and streamlined council organisation, but also services for our community. And we've tried to find the best balance, and I think we've done a very good job of that. So, and I'm sure some of you will have some comments on that. But I'm going to pass over to Chief Executive David to open this item, talk to this item.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll keep this short because I imagine there'll be quite a bit of comments and debate as we go through. But this is the final stage of adopting the long-term plan. As you all know, a huge amount of work has gone into this over the last 18 months. I would just like to give my thanks to all of our staff that have been involved. It's been a huge effort over and above their normal roles. Yourselves as elected members, I know we've workshopped you to within an inch of your sanity at times, but also thanks to the community that engaged in the process. Over 1,600 submissions. It's a record for this council. And it's great to have the active participation in our community in building the plan for the next 10 years. So big thank you to everybody that's been involved, whether it's been a big contribution or a small one, it all makes a difference. As the Mayor said, this is I think an impressive long-term plan. There's a lot in there, a significant increase into our investment in core infrastructure, making sure we're supporting growth in housing as our community continues to grow and develop, whilst also keeping our rates increase towards the more competitive end of the spectrum compared to our peers across the country. We're one of the lower rates increases. That said, that'll be little comfort to those people in our community that already find paying the bills difficult. And you'll know that there's an item on the agenda today looking at the extension of the rates for emissions policy to try and mitigate some of that burden on our the members of our community maybe struggling a little bit more. Notwithstanding that, though, it is still a significant achievement, I think, in the current fiscal environment. And the focus will remain for the foreseeable on making sure that we're a high-performing organisation that delivers services at a very cost-effective and efficient manner. So on that note, I'm going to round off by just repeating my thanks. We do have Chris Webby here who will speak to the audit opinion, which again I think you will find is a pleasing outcome. And on that note, I'm going to hand over to the team who will go through some more of the detail for you. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Andrew and David, for introducing this item. As described, the long-term plan has been a long and enduring 18-month process. And speaking on behalf of the long-term plan team, we'd also like to extend our gratitude to all of those who are involved. The development of the plan has reached far and wide, involving multiple council staff, elected members and the community. So your contribution has been much appreciated through the process. As a reminder, we had multiple consultations running alongside the long-term plan, which included the development contributions policy, financial and rates policies, fees and charges, and parking. Through a comprehensive communication and engagement approach, we reached approximately 179,000 for print and almost 50,000 on social media, receiving a record number of submissions for each consultation. I'll refer you to the report as that provides a more complete summary with in-depth detail, but I do want to speak to the long-term plan process briefly. So decisions on the long-term plan were made at deliberations between 5th to the 7th of June 2024. And beyond this, the team drafted up the long-term plan document based on these decisions in preparation for our final audit. Audit began on 24 June, and through their direction and other adjustments were made to the document to ensure we complied with all legislative requirements. We received the tick of approval from audit this morning, and Chris, the audit director from Audit New Zealand, is here, who will speak to this very shortly. So you'll notice that this paper includes a handful of attachments, which I'll speak to briefly. So the final long-term plan document brings together the details of our 10-year plan. We aimed to shorten the length of this document and restructure its contents to make the document more user-friendly. So the document totals 357 pages compared to 542 pages from the previous long-term plan, a reduction of almost 200 pages. You'll also notice that there are 5 different sections. Each section brings together relevant information and has been structured in a way that provides a logical flow for the reader. So this is the final audited version, and only minor editorial amendments will be accepted beyond this point. The schedule of changes, that document brings together a summary of items that have been adjusted following consultation. The summary document is a user-friendly document which provides a summary of decisions that were made at deliberations. This isn't a comprehensive list, but has been created for the benefit of the community in an easy-to-digest format. And then the development contributions policy, as a standalone document from the long-term plan, this has been provided as the final version of the policy to be adopted. If adopted today on 16 July, the policy will be operative from 17 July. So in terms of next steps, and provided the long-term plan and all associated policies and strategies are adopted today, Submitters will receive a thank you to thank them for their participation and to confirm the final decisions that have been made. The long-term plan will be semi-designed and published on the Council's website within 1 month of adoption. And finally, the team will undergo a review process to obtain feedback and capture lessons learned that will be beneficial for the next long-term plan cycle. So I'll now pass over to Chris to speak to the audit opinion.
First off, I'd like to start with this is a massive achievement. There's a lot of hours that go into this, both from audit, but both from your staff, council and everything. So to get to this point is a very good achievement. So I'd like to thank council, but also management and staff for their help throughout the whole process. If council adopts the LTP today, then in our opinion, the plan will provide a reasonable basis for the long-term integrated decision-making of council's resources, accountability of the council to the community, the information and assumptions underlying the forecast information in the plan are reasonable, and disclosures which relate to the financial benchmarks are appropriate. I just want to point out that our opinion does not provide assurance that the forecasts of the plan will be achieved, but at the moment they are based on the best available information. As part of the CD audit, I included three emphasis matters in just around some assumptions from what's happened to the LTP. I've taken out the hotel and car park because that's not relevant anymore. And the other two from the CD remain, which is just the uncertainty of the cost savings. So we're happy with that assumption, but we just want to draw attention to the reader that there is cost efficiencies which have not been identified in the future years. And then also uncertainty over the external funding of the Royal Opera House. So at the moment that's going ahead, but you're, as a council, are looking at external funding for that. So is there any questions anyone might have?
Thank you for that, Chris. Thanks, Robin, as well. A big milestone for you all. So do we have any comments? Questions, sorry. Deputy Mayor Hallam.
Thank you for the audit report. Is it unsafe for us in this report to project these savings that haven't been identified how we're going to make them? You just mentioned that.
It's not unsafe, so it's a significant assumption. So you've clearly in your assumptions noted the savings, and from past experience we've seen some evidence that you have obtained savings as well. So all I'm doing in the audit opinion is just saying, hey reader, just refer to that assumption. Just like the Royal Opera House as well, it's just a significant assumption. But it's not, if I didn't believe in the assumption, then I would be qualifying it over it. So at the moment I'm happy with the assumption, it's just I just want to make sure that the reader is just aware of it. Because the risk is if not all of those savings are obtained, then there'll be an impact either on rates or debt or potentially reduction of services.
Thank
so
you.
That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you. Thank you. And through the chair, briefly before you mentioned the uncertainty about, which we understand, about attracting funding for the Opera House, and we do know there is significant cultural funding out there to access. The Dublin Street Bridge, you didn't mention that, and my question is, there is no certainty that that will be funded, and we have mentioned in the document that funding may need to be looked at if that's turned down at other resources. You did not include that uncertainty in your report as well? I just want to understand why that wasn't mentioned.
I'm going to pass over to David to talk to this, but Chris, you can have a go too.
I'll let David go first if he wants.
Through your worship, just to clarify, the Dublin Street Bridge is included in the Regional Land Transport Plan for funding, so the risk of it not being funded is significantly diminished compared to where we were, say, a year ago. So I think the risk you're flagging is probably no longer relevant, Councillor Ross.
Councillor Rob.
Yeah,
Question?
reference is made in this item to this being a unbalanced budget, and that also applies to other years in this 10-year plan. What is the attitude of the Audit Office to an unbalanced budget?
Oh, sorry. Just if you just leave it on, Chris, leave your microphone on. Yeah.
Is that better? Yeah. So our attitude is, so it's a council's decision whether they have a balanced or unbalanced budget. Unbalanced budget, with regards to section 100, you need to pass a resolution that's financially prudent. So for audit, we have to review, is it financially prudent that you're having an unbalanced budget as well? So factors taken into account sometimes is we're smoothing the rates because we can't increase the rates 25% in year one, so we're smoothing it, so actually taking a little bit more debt. And then the question is, have you got the debt headroom? So there's some situations where maybe a council doesn't have any debt headspace. Within your situation, you've got quite a bit of debt headspace as well. So it's just looking at that as well, when it's actually council passing the resolution, that it's financially prudent to have the unbalanced budget. So that is the requirement, and that's what you'll be doing. I'm thinking disclosing today, or adopting today, yes, a resolution.
All right. There are no further questions. So I'm going to propose that we move the recommendation. Oh, you have a question. Sorry, Josh.
I do have a question. It's not relevant to the audit, though, so I was going to wait until that part had concluded. Is that okay to ask it now?
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. So it's just a clarification of the recommendations. Can you confirm why we have specifically highlighted the museum budget and the review that's taking place in there? I just wondered why that one had been pulled out and highlighted rather than any of the other decisions that have been made.
Through you, Your Worship, my firm will come up and speak to this, but one of the main reasons is just flagging that the review is still underway. So I suppose drawing a little bit of attention to it, just to make you aware that whilst we have increased the budget compared to previous years, we're still not in a position to know what the outcome of the review is, so there does remain a little bit of a risk associated with that. So we just wanted to make sure that we were transparent around that fact. Mike, do you want to add to anything?
Perhaps just adding a very small thing. As we went through the workshop process to make budget changes, we passed resolutions for that. This one here, we discussed it early in the workshop. We changed the budget, but we never passed a formal resolution, so we're kind of catching up through doing it now.
Okay. Councillor Rob.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's 14 parts to these recommendations, and obviously it'll be helpful if as many as possible are moved together. But I would like Part 3 and Part 12 to be put separately, please. They're about specifically about the long-term plan.
Councillor Philippa.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to ask a question on the Avery specifically, or a couple of questions. I mean, this decision, if we adopt the long-term plan today, we will formally be closing the Avery as per the consultation document. And while I read, I guess page 17 in particular has got some commentary about the community group and them presenting a business case. I guess I just want to, just for clarity for the community out there as well, perhaps David, two or three questions. Will the Avery, it says that the birds won't be rehomed. Will it be staffed and safely staffed in the interim? Please.
Through Your Worship, yes. And
in regard to the Save the Avery kind of community group, when will we be expecting that business case? And I presume that that business case is going to come to council for our decision in regard to but the business case, I guess, to reopen the Avery to a community group, or to get it operated. When are you expecting that?
Yes, through you, Worship. I've already met once with the community group a couple of weeks ago. They've been working on their proposal, and I have another meeting with them, I think in the diary already, that'll occur in the next week or so. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. So I'll get an update from them then on how well they've progressed with preparing their case. So I can't give you a precise date at this point in time. In terms of your kind of supplementary part of the question, the resolutions and the decisions that council needs to pass have either already been done or you're about to complete them today. So there's no need for the proposal to come back to council. Effectively, I just need to be satisfied that their proposal is sufficient to safeguard the welfare of the birds, and my view is you're giving me the delegation to get on with it, with the decisions you're making today and the ones you've previously made during deliberations.
Yeah, I guess that's, thanks, David. I know, there's some real good intent there. And I could just ask a third question around some of there is or would be costs incurred in closing the Avery completely down. Am I correct that some of that cost, which is not new LTP money, is going to be used to help and work with this community group to I guess in the interim to keep the Avery safe and operating while they bring the business case to you, and then possibly in supporting them as they, get funding to support it. Is that kind of correct?
Through your worship, at a high level sense, we will use whatever funding we have available to keep the Avery going in the interim whilst the community group prepares their case. It depends on how long that process takes as to whether the money we've got available stretches far enough or not. And as I've previously indicated, there's a risk that we will incur some unbudgeted expenditure, but in the grand scheme of the whole annual plan, it's going to be non-significant, so it'll be done under my delegations if it's needed. But yeah, we'll keep the Avery running. We'll continue to look after the welfare of the birds whilst this community group has a fair opportunity to put forward their proposal.
Thank you. Thanks. As far as, sorry, can you remind us, are we looking to put any at this stage going forward? So should this community group not meet, if the business case doesn't meet your satisfaction, I'm presuming you will come back and council will be properly informed before any decision to keep it, to actually close it? Is it?
Through your worship, yes, you'll absolutely be advised if that is the case. And just to circle back to your earlier point, any funding we have won't be given to the community group to actually run the Avery, because one of the decisions you've made is effectively not to use rate funds to operate the Avery. So I wouldn't have delegation to give them money anyway, just to be clear on that point.
Okay. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Charlie?
Yeah, thank you. In the unlikely event that we don't adopt this today, what happens?
Through your worship, I think Mike Firmal will correct me if I'm wrong here, but we effectively default back to the LTP 2021 as it's written, and you can't strike the rates, so we'll have to continue with what was year 4 of the previous LTP. Mike, correct me if I've got that wrong.
You are effectively correct. What we would need to do is we'd need to issue first quarter rates invoice based on the 23-24 long-term annual plan, and then as we adopt a long-term plan post, would then need to, for the final 3 quarters, make up the difference between quarter one and what the long-term plan rates are.
Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Thank you. My questions are around next steps, really, and I've got a couple of questions there. Firstly, thank you. I see that submitters will receive a letter. What's the kind of time frame we're thinking where we could expect every submitter to have received their letter?
So we are aiming for early next week to get all of those letters out.
Fantastic. My next question is around the project review process. What are you thinking that the time frame will be for that?
So that's still to be determined. In terms of an internal process, I'm aiming to send out some sort of notification to staff at the end of this week. But I'll be determining with management this week how that might look for elected members. So it will be at some point in the next week or so, we'll have some sort of way forward, I suppose.
Awesome, thank you. And my last one is around the vision for Whanganui work. So we've talked here in the paper, well, it's been talked about here in the paper that work will recommence. What are we thinking the time, I mean, when do we think we'll land on a vision for Whanganui?
Through you, Worship. So we had a meeting yesterday with some of the hapu reps that have been previously working on it with a view to restarting the work. We have prepared a draft work program that shows we expect to have a draft vision ready for public consultation sometime around the end of September.
And can you talk to me perhaps in a little bit, just tease that out a little bit, in terms of what elected members' role is going to be in that process?
Yes, so the work program includes a series of workshops with elected members so that you can be actively involved in, I suppose, reviewing the research pieces of work that have been done by officers and then shaping up the actual vision statements themselves so that it is effectively co-created with yourselves leading the process alongside officers and hapu and community groups.
Great, thank you very much.
Back to Councillor Philippa.
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps a question of Mike, just for some clarity. Mike, page 19 talks about, it shows the forecast rates and debt. It has some commentary about that when we basically wrap holdings into our consolidated account, I gather, that our in-year debt 2024-25, so the end of this year we're about to approve, is going to jump by about 26 million, like from 171 to 197. That's what we're expecting. So I guess my question is, for clarity, how much of that extra 26 million is proposed to be holdings debt as opposed to our other debt?
The majority of the holdings debt has come into the opening balance. We've refinanced all of the external holdings debt, and I think that's in the opening balance. There's not very much holdings debt at all within that $26 million. Very little.
Okay. I'll leave that for another day, I think, when we get into holdings more, but thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Robin, the 1,600 submissions and the letters going out to the submitters, so the in-person and the written submitters are all one group. Some submit on many items, some submit on one or two, either in person or in writing. Are the letters personalised item by, I mean, how do you actually manage that? That's my interest for those who took the time to submit in person and in writing.
Yeah, I'll try answer this one. So we do have a base template which covers all of the different consultations, informing them of the key decisions made. What we do is we email it to each person individually, And wherever possible, we personalise responses. So we're not going to respond to 1,600, but we've pulled out about 200 of those submissions where they either came and presented in person or they have made quite substantive comments, and we have responded to those as well as we can. So I don't want to set an expectation that everyone is going to get a personalised submission, because the vast majority have submitted on LTP questions or issues where we can give them the answers through what decisions have been made, but wherever possible we do try to respond.
And the reason I ask that is that I track the submitters, and I know that there's several who individually have really impacted on the councillors' decisions, that we listened, we attended, we made decisions based on one or two particular submitters. So I'm wondering whether they will be aware the degree of impact that they have made on us with a particular submission.
We certainly don't make comments to that of that kind or that nature. Our comments are more about what you've seen in the summary of decision document. It's just about telling people what the outcomes were after consultation, and as a whole how our community has impacted on the decisions, but also where people have asked quite specific questions or requested information. We've also managed about 20 Lagoima requests through the submissions, so we've responded, Hayley has responded to those as well in that way. So I don't think we would specifically say your submission has influenced in this way. The community as a whole has influenced the decisions on many outcomes, as you can see from the summary document. And to note that we email people the letters. Where people haven't provided an email address, we physically post them. There's also a media release going out after this. There's information on the website which people can go through, and we also plan to put in some effectively adverts in the local newspapers, so for people who may not see through other means, as well as the usual social media, Facebook posts. So hopefully through all of those different channels we'll reach everyone. But if there's further suggestions on getting the message out, and we encourage you to share the council's posts as well.
Councillor Glenda, I understand you've got a question. Yeah.
Sorry, the Zoom has updated and I can't find the raise my hand button, so I'll just have to use my hand. Just regarding the recommendations, I think point 11 needs to be voted on separately, please, just with regards to the conflicts of interest that the Mayor and I have. That would be great. Thank you.
Good point. Okay, look, no further questions, so I will move the items. Oh, sorry, Michael.
Just a point of clarification. The 1 to 5 that you're about to move, noting, is that just a nice thing, or is it a legal term that we are accountable for those notes? Why, I've never seen it before. Why are we noting these things? Because obviously we've all read the papers. So is this to say that, hey, you've agreed legally, you've read the papers? Like, I'm just trying to understand the word noting. We note this happens, we note this happens, we note this happens. Who wrote that?
We do, particularly 1 and 2, we do have to pass those because the decisions were made at deliberations. You are now noting that happened, and that is part of the decisions that then follow. So you have taken that into account.
Nice.
And
so it's an LTP thing. It's legal, we need to note it, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, we need to do 1, 2, 3. We've had the lawyers check those and give us that wording. Yeah.
Cool. See, I'm not silly.
Councillor Cage.
Can I just add something to that?
Sure.
Just in my experience, to Michael, my experience in a noting recommendation is more about setting the context, which is just a different way of saying what Elise has already told us.
Great. So no further questions. So this time I'm going to move that the I'll move all of the items. I can do that, can't I? Even though I've got a conflict. And then, so do I have a seconder? Yeah, so I just asked Anna, I can still move that or not?
We can move it, we can just leave that one there, just abstain from that one.
Okay, well, I'll move the rest and abstain from that one.
I have requested that 3 and 12 be taken separately, please.
That's okay, so we can move them.
Okay, so should we, okay, let me just, sorry, no, just quickly, so do we want to move, so Rob's, can we identify which ones are being moved separately?
So we're going to take
Which ones have been separated?
Percentage of debt.
11, 2 and 12.
Okay, 3, 11 and 12, it was, and does that include the development contribution?
No, I can't remember.
Number 11, okay.
And that one will be taken separately. So we could probably take 1, 2, take 3 separately, take 4 to 10, take 11, 12 separately, and then 13, 14 together.
Okay, maybe a few,
Don't have to be in a specific
yep,
order.
so that's what I was going to say, if you could just, yeah. So I'm going to
Sorry,
move-
we do, also apologies, we do need to pass 1, 2, 3 first, and they do have to be in the specific order, because we can't adopt the long-term plan until we've adopted those other policies.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
right, so shall we do them in batches then? I'm just suggesting 1 and not 3? We do 3 separately. Well, it's not just the development contributions; it's the order of them. So that's what we're, yeah. So if we move 1 and 2, if I move 1 and 2 first, Josh is second, and then we'll just move through them progressively. I think the best way. All right. So should we have comments on? My suggestion: we have comments on this. Sorry.
Sorry, Your Worship, the simple thing here to do is 3 and 11 and 12 are asked by a member to be spoken to separately, and the members have the right to do that. Now, so why not put all other clauses other than 3, 11 and 12?
Because we need to do them in sequential order. So I'm just going to take a moment to get some advice
They
here.
aren't sequential order.
If we don't pass 3, we can't do 12.
See,
So I'm going to go back to what I was proposing. We do 1 and 2 first. I'm going to move 1 and 2, then we'll move through them in okay, so now I'll move number 3, do we? Yeah, okay, so I'm going to go through them sequentially because it's a little bit tricky. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Josh. All those in favour?
for what?
For 1 and 2 only.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a little bit tricky. I'm just asking for your patience if that's
Yep.
okay. It's not that easy because we have to go through them sequentially, and that's the easiest way to do it, if that's okay.
Want to suggest that we only speak to what we think is really relevant, because obviously you need to give an opportunity, move second, speak to, but there's probably, obviously, for example,
Okay, look,
12
sorry,
is going to be really relevant,
Yeah.
otherwise you might get...
Sure, no, that's fine. Okay, so so we're going to so I'm going to ask for comments on 1 and 2, then we'll move through them sequentially, because then the reason for that, I think, is because it's easier to comment as we go, as opposed to just wait for the end. So, do we have any comments on items 1 and 2? We have to do, just a reminder, we have to do these first because they have to be passed before we can do the others. All right. So, do we have any comments on items 1 and 2? Councillor Philippa.
Okay, we'd just like to really thank staff and our submitters, because that's these 1 and 2 of what that's really about. David and his team for all their hard work, particularly when the management team's pretty lean, and 1,608 submissions. Amazing effort from our community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. No further comments? All right. So I'll put the motion on the screen for items 1 and 2. They're up on the screen. You can see them. Public can see them. So I'm not going to read them out. So all those in favour? Against? Abstain? Okay. Motions are carried. Those 2 motions are carried. Thank you. So we'll move to item 3 separately. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kate. Do we have any comments on this item? No comments? Great. All those in favour? Right. Against? Councillor Rob? Anyone abstaining? No. Okay, motion is carried. Four through to 10, yes. So we just go to the bottom of 10, I think. So yeah, look, it's on the board. I'm not going to read them out because there's a fair bit there. But so I'm happy to move that. Second to Councillor Ross. So do you have any comments on items 4 to 10 specifically? Uh, 11 and 12 is the development contributions policy and adopts the long-term plan. Yeah. So we're just going through sequentially. Yeah. So no comments on items 4 to 10. So no further comments. I'll put the motion, those 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 onto the screen. All those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. Great. So we get to item 11. Yep. Councillor Kate. Councillor Philippa to second. Do you have any comments on this item? Okay, no comments. Okay, well I'll put the motion on the screen. All those in favour? Against? And I will abstain, and I'm assuming that Councillor Glenda will abstain as well. Right. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you. Now we move to item 12, adoption of the long-term plan. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor? I'll go to Councillor Peter. Any comments on this item? Councillor Rob. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for taking this separately. The reason I've taken it separately is because I find this rate increase in the first year of this long-term plan totally unpalatable. What we're doing to the residential sector is really painful. You know, and although we've got an 11.2% overall increase, we all know that it doesn't fall fairly on the different sectors. Residential has 13.5%, commercial has 2.7%, farming has 8.8%, and rural lifestyle 6.20. And I know there's some extenuating circumstances here with the introduction of the curbside targeted rate, which is 4.4 odd in the residential rate. But this residential rate actually is even a lot more difficult for the lower valued properties than what this article is saying. You know, I took out some figures on some low valued properties in Delhi Avenue, a value of 440,000. Last year their increase was 30.5%. This year it's 14.7%, a total over 2 years of 45.2%. Two properties I looked at in Cornfoot Street, one with a capital value of 685 had a 58.6% increase last year. This year they've got another 13.6, a total of 72.2 over 2 years. And another lower valued property, 325,000 capital value in Cornfoot Street, had a 15.31% increase last year. And this year, it's another 16.05. So that's 31% over 2 years. This level of increase is just too painful. So I appreciate that the Chief Executive did a very good job in identifying through a 6-point plan how rates could be minimised. But in my opinion, we could have done better. You know, I raised the point of the Sergeant Gallery. Two suggestions that I made during this process was, one, that we introduced door charges to the Sergeant Gallery. Do you know that the Lenlai Gallery over the last 5 years, has collected 1.05 million in door charges? We've got to look at this. This Sergeant Gallery in this next year's plan is costing the average ratepayer $188 before they've even gone in the door. And 60% of the ratepayers probably won't go in the door. So we've got to look at introducing door charges for non-locals. I also suggested that we could smooth the rates over the period of the 10-year plan. Because when you look at it, you know, our 11.2 is this year, next year it's 6.6, it gets down to as low as 1.5 in the last 5 years of the plan. The Chief Financial Officer said, well, it is possible, but I don't advise it, and has given us the reasons why. I noticed the gentleman from the Audit Office mentioned the words rate smoothing. It is possible. Other councils do it. So there are other things that we could have done as well. But I just don't think we should indulge in backslapping on a rate increase that is going to be really painful for a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Councillor Charlie.
Thank you. It was good enough for President Biden to use a teleprompter. Is it okay if I use mine? Thank you. Look, we're pleased to have a record number of submissions of this long-term plan, encouraged by community hope that at last they'll be listened to by us. Do we really listen to them? I can understand the council making a decision when the community split is, say, 50-50 or close to it, the long-term plan, but for the life of me I can't understand how we can go against the will of the people with an overwhelming call from the community not to approve the $3.5 million of Marae funding. The wider community clearly had an equally overwhelming desire to upgrade the Whanganui East Pool, but we said no. Although it is to stay open for at least one season, hopefully that's not just a stay of execution as we kick the can down the road once more. I've always been against the recently introduced curbside recycling in urban areas, but with a 2.4 rate rise that the many can ill afford, as well as pushing up rents. That's one thing. But now we are forcing on some rural communities, clearly against their will, with no consultation and no intention of listening to the very well put together submissions and petitions presented to us. These people are almost begging us to help, but we just fob them off. We're sorry, we can't help you, that's operations. We are governance. These people put us in council for that reason, to do the right thing by them. It's no wonder they get angry and frustrated and nowhere else to go. If they make threats of legal action or going public, we rarely close ranks. It's almost like we want them to do that so they'll effectively go away. And if they really overstep the mark, we trespass them. It wasn't always like this. The upgrade of the Airport Road Culvert is a classic example. If it weren't for the dogged, never give up attitude of Councillor Rob over a 10-year period, The undersized prone to blockage culvert would still be backing up and flooding houses and making access to the airport for emergency vehicles impossible in a bad weather event. I believe some in our community are losing faith in us for very good reason.
Councillor Kate.
Thank you. A couple of things to say. Firstly, thanks to the officers. In an environment where often bureaucrats get a hard time as not caring, that has certainly not been my experience, indeed, at council and through this long-term plan process. I think what I have seen evidenced is officers who have a sincere, deeply held belief about the importance of our community and of the submissions and submitters and listening to them, and ensuring their message is conveyed very clearly to elected members. So thank you to officers for not only your hard work, but the way in which you have gone about doing your work and facilitated community engagement in this process. This long-term plan is not without its pain. It's not without its pain for the ratepayers. I haven't seen any backslapping about the increase that we're talking about here at all. So it's not only without pain for the ratepayers, it's about pain for this organisation itself, and because perhaps one of the less publicly discussed savings within this plan is the savings that the Chief Executive is leading. And in a service industry, that's about your people. If we want to cut costs, you know, in a service industry, it's about our people, and our people have to wear that pain. So I want to acknowledge that, and over the next year, I guess there will be some pain in terms of our organisation as we manage our costs even more. The last thing I wanted to comment on is our infrastructure investment. And I guess the investment that we've made in our infrastructure in this long-term plan will put us in a good position. It won't be a perfect position when we're talking about creating resilient communities. We'd like to spend a whole lot more to make our community more resilient. However, it is a very significant investment. And I think that when we consider and reflect about how much better off Whanganui is in terms of, you know, when we compare it with Wellington, for example, in terms of our infrastructure, we need to remember that that comes at a cost. So I guess I'm just, if I could summarise really, it's not without its pain. We have invested, but it comes with a cost to ratepayers and a cost to our organisation. But thank you to everyone who's been involved. I think elected members have certainly listened to submitters. There's been there's been a lot of angst, I know, in the conversations that I've had with my colleagues around the table, a lot of angst about what we leave in, what we take out of this long-term plan. So thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Josh.
Thank you. My comments will be significantly shorter now because Councillor Kate has essentially said everything that I wanted to say, and I completely tautoko her remarks. Yeah, I mean, this is a tough year for ratepayers, and the consequences of this 11.2% will be felt deeply, and I really want to acknowledge that. But what this long-term plan also does is it responds to the economic context, and I just want to reference the breakdown of what the 11.2% is actually made up of. 2.5% on curbside recycling, 2.8% on interest, 1.5% on insurance, 2.6% on infrastructure. I'm not going to mention the other aspects of that 11.2% because they are, in terms of the overall figure, relatively minor. But I just want to put into context how much of this 11.2% is taken up with the core stuff that this council has agreed to and acknowledged. And one of the key aspects of that is inflation. And that's why I say that this long-term plan is responding to the economic context. One of the things that I think is really important in terms of responsible fiscal governance is not passing the costs of neglected infrastructure on to the next generation. And sadly, local government over the last 30 years at least has a legacy of doing exactly that. And I don't want to be a part of a council that continues to pass those costs on. So as Councillor Kate also referenced, I'm really proud of the additional the additional amount of money that is going on core infrastructure, because it does respond to the costs that we know are there and that will continue to grow going into the future. The broader point is that we have a obligation to be stewards of the $1.5 billion of assets that we own, and this is a reflection of doing exactly that. There are some other core achievements, as I call them, in this long-term plan that I do want to make reference to. One is the Marae funding. I know it didn't receive universal support around this table, but that is absolutely where we should be spending our money from 2027 onwards, because it is about preserving our Indigenous heritage. The other thing is the increase in community funding, because while ratepayers will feel the pain in their back pockets from the rates increase, economic hardship manifests in different ways as well. It means you struggle to pay for your groceries. It means poorer mental health. It means a range of other social challenges, and these organisations that we are providing additional funding to are the ones that are working on the front lines to respond to those challenges, and we're enabling them to do so more effectively. I want to finish off by thanking the staff as well. I know this has been a particularly challenging long-term plan. I know that some of the commentary out there has been quite difficult to wear, and as elected members we're in a fortunate position because we can respond to that criticism. We can articulate the political argument for why we've chosen to go down a particular path. Staff cannot do that. Staff work diligently behind the scenes to support us to put together a budget that the community can feel responds to the needs going into the future. So I just really want to acknowledge all the work that's gone on behind the scenes by Robin, by Elise, by the finance team, by David and others. It is hugely appreciated. So I leave it there, and I will be voting for this long-term plan with confidence, knowing that we've got into the right place. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I'll go to Councillor Phillip, then I'll go to Glenda on screen.
Yeah, thank you. Thing I worked out, I've sat around 6 long-term plans. I thought it might be 7, but I don't think quite. You know, I think this truly has been the most challenging, but it's also been where the community has also given us a lot of feedback through all those submissions. While I accept that inflation, insurance and interest, the 3 I's, have impacted our long-term plan like every other council, pretty much, and I support that investment into key infrastructure, our 3 waters and our roading in particular. I think we must acknowledge the significant capital cost increases that the Sargent Gallery and the port in particular, and probably a diminishing dividends around investment, largely because of, I guess, COVID impacts, in particular around NZICPA, the flight to school. And I mean, I think colleague across the table just talked about, and I did a bit of a, half our rate, half this rate is curbside recycling, and you know, obviously that's that 2.2, but interest and insurance. So you know, interest is really a lot of that. It's around paying the interest on the debt of our infrastructure, including the Sargent and the port, and that, you know, those extra impacts that have really hit people. I think we'd all acknowledge that we need to still keep doing better with our community and engagement to keep trying solutions. And you know, when I look at the fact that some might say, and some have said to me, that we nearly kind of had to threat of closing some things like the Repertory Theatre, the Aviary, Wongnese Pool, to get the community to come out and help us find solutions. I kind of think, the emphasis is particularly on us elected members now, when we've going to have a leaner team with our 6-point plan and with the new portfolios. And I guess what better, we've got a year to really get out there and do better with our community and engaging over and helping them and work with them to find solutions. I believe we've lost some community confidence prior, and I think we know that, and we've admitted that in regarding purchasing Victoria Ave and Ridgeway Street properties around the possible hotel, just prior to going out and asking our community what they thought about the hotel. But in saying all that, and the reason that I will support this plan is that, we have, I guess we showed some listening. I think that's really important. We changed some decisions around the hotel. We stepped back on that. The Whanganese pool, we stepped up on that and have supported that for another year and looking at a solution for outdoor pools, working with the Save the Avery group to keep our Avery open, and similar around the Repertory Theatre. So, we proposed a 10.6% increase in our plan. We've changed some decisions listening to our community, including something like the Whanganese pool and the impact of rates, and we've landed on a 11.2 average, while that's 13.5 residential, and of course some 3.2 of that is curbside. I'm really, like you're all concerned around, and I supported the idea when we workshopped it around the debt smoothing. I thank our management team for their commentary around their opinion on the debt smoothing, which they don't support because of the unbalanced budgets. And I look forward to, and I would only be supporting this plan, thinking that in 8.3, a paper to come next, that I will be supporting this rates for remission to really help those most impacted by this plan. So yeah, I think we need to keep, we've got a balance here. It's a tough balance. I literally have heard so many people. I've got a family member who was so delighted to get a $50 increase in his weekly low-income salary, and then get hit with an $80 increase in his rent. And as a, it's, what do you do there? So, landlords are having to pass on those impacts. But I think we've got the balance as good as we can at the moment between prudence and aspiration. Let's keep stepping up, and I will be supporting the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, thanks. Councillor Glenda, go to you on screen.
Thank you. I concur with the others that have just spoken about supporting this LTP. And look, it's not what we aspired to at the start of the process. And again, we're using the word balance. It is a good balance, I think, of the essentials, continuing to keep the lights on, I guess you could call it that, but particularly that Wanganui is open and is still open for business. And I think that's really important that we remember that. We have a great infrastructure, a good infrastructure, and that's thanks to councils that have gone before us and their good stewardship, and we need to continue to fund that well. And we've talked about the things that are unseen from the Mayor and our CE earlier on, the things that we enjoy every day. We don't think about it when we're getting up. We put the kettle on, we use the bathroom facilities, we turn the lights on, we get in the car, drive our kids to school, or we go to work on the roads that are relatively safe. All these things cost money that we have to keep supporting. So, look, I think the increase is not a surprise to anybody. It was clearly articulated on page 56 of the LTP consultation document that the average rate rise we were looking at was 10.6, with the residential being 12.8. That's gone up 0.7% with the deliberations, and most of that has been because we decided to keep the pool open for another season, because we heard from our community, which was a really important thing to do, and we did that. But that has increased the rates to the rate rise of 11.2% being the average, with residential of 13.5. So I don't think this is a surprise to our community. It is not something that we wanted, but I think that we have landed in a good place. So I would just like to thank the staff as well for their hard work, very hard work in the background, and thanks to the community for rising up and submitting, giving us their voice so that we could take that into account when we make our decisions. And I remember someone saying once that not always is the most popular decision the right decision. So that is, that's where we stand, where we have to take into account what the community want and what we believe to be the right decision to make. So thanks to all involved. I am supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Yeah, thank you. My colleagues have covered all the major things, so I don't need to rehash that. So I'm going to take a bit different focus. The consultation document, which I researched way back, it was volumes and volumes and volumes. And eventually it was pared down to roughly a really nice document of 67 pages. That had community input, that had staff input, that had officers' input to create that document. And still, despite it being a great document, we got some people who were unhappy, who were really into number crunching and felt there wasn't enough information. And I know that in the agenda there's reference to there will be a review of the consultation document and what lessons we can learn from that. So if there's advice to come from the public, please do send it for next time, because you part own that. 1,600 submissions. Maybe that's because for the first time we had to look at frontline services, and that meant affecting people on a personal level. And it may have got the reaction as from that list that we came up with. I am particularly impressed that there were 1,600. I mean, I'm over the moon by the people who were able to present in person, because it's quite a scary thing to do. I've done it. I'm still a bit nervous after 18 months on council. But I mean, I was so touched by the presentation by Fiona. I was so touched by the presentation by Tiffany. I was so touched by the shift in public perception about the Avery 12 months ago, and a clear indication from our public that was different marginally 12 months on, and that was reflected in our vote. It's been a tough time. It's, for 5 of us, it's our first term, it's our first 3-year part review of the long-term plan. It's been very tough making some decisions within my colleagues. There's been some tough matters to deal with the public at times. The job has been done, and my closing comment is we do listen, but when you have different views from different members of the public, that's what we're elected to do. But I want to point this out to the public, because this is one of the reasons why I came on council. You, the public, made a difference regarding the baskets. You, the public, made a difference regarding the library. You, the public, made a difference regarding the repertory theatre. And in particular, I acknowledge Councillor Helen Craig. You, the public, have made a difference in part to do with the future of the pool. You make that difference. You give us that input, and we'll take ownership and make the tough decisions. Again, it will not please all, but do not, which is the one statement I hate, council does what it wants and doesn't listen to us. Please, to those who are listening or the press, please let the public know there is proof in the pudding that you make the difference to your elected members. I will be supporting this long-term plan. Thank you.
Councillor Peter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will be fully supporting the adoption of the long-term plan. It has been a long year where there is 13 people around this table that have been challenged for a whole year, worked hard, and this is where we've landed. None of us are happy with the 13% or whatever the rate rise is, but I'm very much a team player, and I am happy to endorse the adoption of the long-term plan. It is, there has been 13 different points of view, and we have all had our opportunity to argue our case, and so this is where we've landed. So I would expect every councillor to fully endorse this plan and wear it for the next year, and I look forward to the next plan. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Councillor Michael.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. I joined this council 18, 19, 20 months ago, and I was completely at a disarray when I found out that previous councillors, I felt, had shafted us pretty much. There were so many costs that were already in the pipeline, this thing called the LTP, that to change it would require an LTP alteration. So I said to myself, well, when we come up to the next LTP, I won't shaft the next council because that would be unfair. And that's how I felt we've done this time. In November, we started off this process. We had a good conversation, a few cries about how high this rate's going to be. In December, I sent an email to everybody about the rate increases relative to the household income. 57% household income has increased in 14 years, 108% of rates have been increased. This was met by multiple council elected members stating that almost it doesn't matter and nothing we can do about it. One mentioning it's already done, Michael. It's already done in December. January, I completed a backlog with the CE from the highest value to the lowest value items. We looked at mandatory, discretionary, advisable items. No one looked at that until last month. $7 million of cuts were identified as low-value items that don't impact the public very much. And yet by April, we confirmed that the top debt is forever moving, that it's not ever going to stop, especially with councillors keep on adding to top debt. By May, we didn't even bring in the low option. We ignored the $7 million, we ignored the ideas, and we controlled the narrative that 10% is a good thing. It is not a good thing. By June, I don't believe we listened to the people at all. I agree with my councillor friend over there. I think we controlled the narrative and then we listened to some things. We didn't listen to the people. And I think we're all going to feel the wrath of this next year. By July, I reflected and I looked at what have the governors actually done? The CE and the officers have done a fantastic job, and I think they've actually cut more than we have. Because if I put aside economic development and Sergeant Gallery, we actually increased spending by 100K. And I thought that sounds great. 9-10 months of hard grafting, and we increased our rate burden on our people. I'm very thankful for the officers, on the other hand. I now worry for the future councillors. I worry that some people won't be here next term, but their LTP is going to be set in stone for 3 years, making it harder for the next group of people coming through the door. I am worried about that. For those councillors who started to worry last month, it's too late. You should have joined the number of us in December, January and February who saw the writing on the wall, and even the CE agreed we could cut a lot harder. And you didn't do it. You worried about it in June. It was too late. I urge you to start thinking about things next month for the annual plan. But as you know, once we lock this LTP plan in, there is no going back. We have to do LTP alterations. The annual plan can only go so much. I will not be supporting this. And as one councillor mentioned to me last year, what would happen if we didn't agree to this? I'd happily start this process again right here, right now, with the people, for the people. So I'm very upset. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Councillor Jenny.
Thank you. It's a reasonably hard act to follow. So I have two great disappointments with regards to this long-term plan. The first one is where we've landed, particularly with the residential rate increase of 13.5%. I know that we've all, councillors and our staff and our community, have worked incredibly hard to get us to this point. Yes, we could have come in with a lower figure. To do that, we would have had to have kicked the can down the road. And we know what happens when we do that. The cost of everything that we kick down the road significantly increases. and Wellington is a great example of that. So as much as I regret where we have landed, I think it's the best that we can do under these circumstances without creating consequences down the track for others. I'm also very disappointed in the poor behaviour of some of our community online and in other forums. It is really disappointing to have to handle some of the atrocious and appalling comments that have been made unfairly and uninformed around some of the decisions that we've made and the people involved. But I am pleased to say that they are a very, very, very small portion of this amazing community. I do believe that councillors need to be fundamentally involved in the long-term plan review. We're the decision makers and we wear the consequences of those decisions, and we need to be involved in reviewing how that process was held. I think that's really important. And I guess the bottom line is the rating system is a broken system. It's a system that does not work anymore. It doesn't work for our community. It's a wealth tax in times of great difficulty, and all it does is create additional burdens on our more vulnerable members of the community. And I think that's a great disappointment, and that goes straight back to central government. And I hope that one day we have a government that has the courage to actually look at the rating system and how councils are funded and actually do something about it to create a greater level of equity in our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And thank you, Councillor Duncan, for speaking to that point. And I completely tautoko that prior to our consultation, I had a vision in my mind where all of our ratepayers could walk with us, and every council could walk together to Wellington and raise our hands and say, read the Future for Local Government review and do something about it, because it's not the first time that our rates process has been reviewed, and it's come up multiple times that it is a broken system and that it's not serving us in the ways that it should. I too would like to thank the staff and our elected members for getting to where we have. It has been a really long and quite enduring process. So thank you. I would like to acknowledge the historically low and probably falsely low rates that we are now sort of carrying. I think councils and ratepayers got used to underfunding our infrastructure and underfunding our future needs, and it's come to bite us quite hard in a very difficult economic environment. I would also like to say how much I love this town and this district. There's nowhere else that I would rather be, and it is a real honour to be in the seat that I'm sitting in now to help carve out our future. And I think that we have landed in a good place considering the difficult environment that we are in. The last point that I would like to make is in regards to our consultation process. It is our role as elected members to provide information to our community so they can make informed submissions. It is not our job to lobby our community, and it is lobbying that controls the narrative. Thank you. I will be supporting this LTP.
Deputy Mayor Hallett.
Thank you. Is everybody still awake? We've done well. You've all made really good points, actually, and none of you are wrong. You know, like everybody's made very good comments. Look, I guess I want to just change the narrative a little bit. The 10-year plan's about the next 10 years, and yes, it's tough and it's hard, and we're going through very difficult times around the whole country. What I personally find that I have to focus on now when times are tough is what that next 10 years looks like. And actually, for Wanganui, it's still looking pretty exciting, and that's what gets me out of bed in the morning and gets me round this table. It's not the pay, because it's hard work being around this table because of the hard decisions we have to make. Look, I just, you know, when I look forward, I look at the potential for the port to deliver something really fantastic for Wanganui over the next years. Just recently went round with Miles Fothergill again at QS Boat Builders, and he's building these electric ferries that'll run the city to Devonport route. Absolutely fantastic, world-class ferries being built here in Wanganui, and the potential for the marine industry to expand in Wanganui, I think, is really huge. We're hearing about the offshore wind potential, and our port would be a fantastic base for that. So that keeps me really excited about our future. The Sargent Gallery, that scaffolding is starting to come down. What an amazing building. We already are on the map in my view, but that building is going to be fantastic, and I just cannot wait till it opens. It's going to be talked about for years and years and years and years. Our ability, I think, as council to understand technology and renewable energy, I think, is where we really need to be starting to focus. I think, obviously, there are huge opportunities in those areas, and it's about us providing that platform that enables our community to take those up and make the most of this. I know the Mayor and myself and most of us, you know, we talk about Wanganui and its key points, heritage, our arts, and I just think that wraps up Wanganui has heart, and I think we have tremendous heart. We've got everything we need to stand out in New Zealand as in looking into the future, even more and more and more, even though we're just a little. And I think we at this council make some pretty good decisions about moving that slowly forward and supporting our community. We can always do better. That's what we strive to do. And it's not always easy, and we don't always get it right, but we're trying really hard, and I think generally we do a great job. So thank you to my fellow councillors. You're a great team. You all add tremendous value. And it has been hard, and our staff too, because it's been hard on them as well. So thanks, team. Cheers.
Thanks, Helen. No further comments, so I'll just close off this particular item, number 12. And thank you for everyone for their comments. All those were really insightful, and I think it just shows that we do care as elected members for our community deeply. But I do call this long-term plan and striking the rates a theory of second best. And there is no great solution to these challenging times, and for our country and for our community, really. We're all in it together. It's not, I talk to fellow mayors around the country, and they are in deep pain as well. So it's good to look over the fence and find out what others are feeling. And indeed, you know, I know that our Australian colleagues in local government are also feeling the pain as well. They've got in some cases, a cap on their rates. So, and with that, they are in pain as to what they do. They literally have to cut services and stop services and sell assets. And it's not being met well by their community, I can tell you. They are some angry people when they have to do that. But I, and assume we, certainly didn't come into this job, into this role to strike rates at an average of 11.2%. And I know residential is around 13% and so on. And it's also no comfort that we are well below most councils in New Zealand as well. However, that is what we have been charged to do. And the 6-point plan, I remember sitting in my office talking to David about I suggested a 5-point plan. He came up with 6, and I think that's delivered for us a sharpened focus on keeping rates as low as possible, as well as balancing community requests for attention and cutting of services and facilities. Intergenerational responsibility is a factor that we do need to consider. The rate increases this year will have an accumulated effect on our future, and we suggested cuts to our community, and they in large didn't want these. That's what they said to us. Balancing low rates against delivering service has been trumped by our community and us finding the balance between the rates percentage being struck today and having services. It's a fine balance, and everyone around this table will have a view on where that balance sits, but I think overall that we have done an incredible job alongside our community, listening to them and landed as best we can. So our council is in a very good place, and it's worth noting that we've invested well in our three waters. Our debt is manageable. Standard & Poor's have given us a very good credit rating. We have a substantial investment in infrastructure, and our economy is relatively robust. I talk to others and other mayors and elected members around the country, often just checking in and vice versa, and they are envious of our position. Spinning plates is another theme that I feel that is worth noting as well. You know, I reflect on some of our decisions, and I think 99% of them have been great decisions, and a couple of times we haven't got things quite right. But when you're spinning lots of plates, you do things on the fly, and the plate will fall every now and then, and that's what's happened. We don't get everything right. We don't pretend to, but I can tell you that we're authentic, we care, and we have been diligent in serving our community. We have listened. There is a small minority, a very noisy minority, that say we have not listened. I completely disagree with that. Every person around this table has taken time out to hear submissions. We've been out into the community talking to people. We've been online and engaging in online. Sometimes that's not been the greatest thing to do, but I've learned a couple of lessons myself. But what I would say is that I've been, like Councillor Jenny said, appalled, absolutely appalled by some of our community who have been online and giving abuse to staff, giving abuse to elected members, giving abuse to myself. I can tell you that my family read these comments. Our families read these comments, and I say shame on those that conduct their lives in such a way. It's shocking. Some of the recent comments that one of our councillors had online went to the police. That's how bad it's got. And I would say, if you want to have a comment, I'm very happy for you to come and talk to me and see me. Don't hide behind your keyboard. Come and have a chat, and say it in person. I've pushed this one pretty hard just now because I've talked a lot about social division, and that is alive and well in our world. I'd like to think that Wanganui is above that. We are a district of integrity. We've had people of integrity that have led and governed our district for a long time, and I would ask our community, for those very few people, to just take a moment of reflection. We have a lot to be excited about, and we are well positioned with this long-term plan and the vision to be developed soon to continue to see Wanganui be the greatest place to live on earth. Thank you. Forgot where I am. So, right. So, no, there are no further comments. So, I'm going to put the motion on the screen that the Council adopts the long-term plan 24 to 34. All those in favour? All those against? Councillor Rob and Councillor Michael, and Councillor Charlie. Anyone abstain? I don't think so. All right, so the motion is carried. Thank you. Right, so we move to item okay, let's have a cup of tea then. Is that right? That's what I said. I said, I can do item 2, and you said, no, want a break. Oh, and then a break, was it? Okay, I was just getting confused here. No, I think we're on a roll. We're doing well. So let's do item 13 and 14. Okay, so that bit down below you've got moved by the Mayor and seconded. That's not relative to this, is it? Okay, just checking. So Councillor Phillip, are you happy to move? And do I have a seconder? Councillor Josh. So do we have any comments on this item? No comments. So all those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. So now we'll have a break. So it is currently 11:10, so if we're back at 11:25, quarter of an hour. All right. Move on to the next item, 8.2, rates resolution for 24-25. So looks like, welcome Simon. You're going to talk to this, are you? Great.
not the chair. Sorry, problem with my chair. Sorry. Yeah. So just introducing the rates resolution for this financial year. The purpose of this item is to formally set the rates as we've just adopted the long-term plan. Sorry, I've just found the clicker. Yeah, so the purpose of the resolution is to formally adopt the rates resolution as we've just adopted in the long-term plan. The rates are set based on valuations up to the 30th of June and must be set on the valuation as at the 30th of June. So at the end of the year, the QV always do a reconciliation process, and so we always set the rates after the 30th of June to make sure that we're sitting on the most up-to-date and valid information that we have. The intention is that rates notices will be, after today, they will be printed and posted out and emailed and in people's letterboxes from about 1st of August. So just a little bit of a summary as to what's happened since last year. In the long-term plan, the capital valuations have increased across the district by about 148 million, so that's a 1% growth, and there's an extra 202 SUIPs, which is a 0.9% growth. For the quick definition of growth, it's just basically taking off any properties that have been ended or subdivided, so properties that are no longer rateable because it's been carved up into a number of properties, so we bring in the new properties. Any change in the number of SUIPs on a property, so if you've subdivided and built a granny flat or something like that, or any changes between the residential, farming, commercial category. A little bit of a summary of growth. We forecast in the long-term plan $600,000 worth of growth. That's a GST exclusive figure. The figure on the screen there is GST inclusive of 717,000. So I think we achieved, I think it was about $620,000 net of GST, which means we pretty much got it bang on where we were expecting it to be. The majority of that growth is in the residential sector, an extra 215 units who are paying another $668,000 worth of rates. And there's a small increase of in the commercial sector. Across the districts, you can see there's a bit of growth sort of spread around the place. The majority of it is, if you look at the change in SUIPs in the rural area, there's an extra 80 SUIPs, and I think that is mostly to do with the Fordell Rust Hall complex and Clarkson Ave, etc. So all of those ones are on the fringes of town, and there's some others dotted through the district as well. And in the last part of it is setting the penalties. So after the penalties are applied after the instalment dates, there's an annual penalty and a 6-monthly one also in there. The current penalty rate is 5%. We used to charge 10%. We're allowed to charge up to 10%, but we reduced that post-COVID to 5%. So, and that's all I've got. So happy to take questions.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Yeah, so do we have any questions around the table? Deputy Mayor Hallam.
Thank you. Has any consideration been made to increase the penalty rate back up? The reason being we reduced it in the past because interest rates had reduced a lot and it was unfair to continue with a 10%. But now at 5%, it almost pays you, yeah, it's not quite, but you know, we're not above an investment rate, so.
It's not something that we considered through the process this year. Happy to take that consideration probably committed at this point to the 5% for this resolution, because we've consulted on that basis. But I think we could probably adjust that through the annual plan if you wanted to raise that next year, but obviously with discussion with the councillors.
Thank you.
Councillor Robb.
Yes, I think bringing an item later on that point with the penalties would be a good move. I just wanted to ask you about SUIPs. The government has new legislation that means you don't get a resource consent up to 60 square metres now, I believe. Is there anything in this new regulation that affects your definition of a SUIP?
I'm not completely over the new regulations with the government. Our definition talks about whether it has to be separately used or inhabitable. Needs to have its own kitchen facilities and bathroom facilities, and a separate entrance and living space, I think, from memory. So there's a quite clearly defined definition within our long-term plan and our rates funding impact statement. And so that defines what we class as a SUIP. Every council has to set their own definition. I think ours is most of them are fairly standard across the country, but the kitchen is probably one of the key components in our definition. And my understanding with the new regulation is that you don't have to get a consent for it, but you still have to inform council of it.
Okay. Any more there, Rob? Okay. All right. Go to Councillor Ross.
Thank you. Yeah. Through the chair, just one question, because I'm looking at all the residential properties going up of note in Springvale. It's just really fantastic. Do we know, or do we have available, how many residential properties have been added to the rating pool for the year 2023-2024?
So the rating definition is based on the separately used or inhabitable part of the rating. It's slightly nuanced in the definition. A lot of the additional 202 SUIPs that I've talked about just now are actually just sections that have been created, and so not necessarily built on. So that it becomes a SUIP when it's separately used. So when you've got a farm that's been carved up into 10 sections, then there's now 10 SUIPs, because they are all separately, and often they're all sold to different owners. And so when it's a different owner, then it's separately used. So the vacant land is a SUIP. So in terms of how many residential properties we've got, it's sort of difficult to tell from the rating aspect, because once you've built the house already had a SUIP. It's the building that's the capital improvements that have sort of defined it as being the house, but we haven't sort of identified those as being a count in the rating database.
So physical buildings,
Yeah.
residential buildings, do we know?
Not from a rating database.
Okay. Could we find out?
The building, it's probably a question for the building consent team, as the number of consents issued.
Yeah. And the only reason I ask is because if we have a rapid growth strategy, one of them is housing development to meet demand, to build a population.
Yeah. So from the rating standpoint, what we're probably seeing is more section growth rather than housings.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
The houses come after the section.
Yeah.
Councillor Kate.
I don't want to labour it too much, but before everybody gets too excited about increasing the penalty for late payment, I just wanted you to amplify that a little bit, or tease it out. So it's a 5% added. How often?
Yeah, so it's 5% per instalment. So it actually works out when it was a 10%. It was an effective annual rate of 21%. I think was the calculation on it. So 5% is on the instalment amount. So if your instalment is $500 and you miss that, it's 5% of the $500 at the instalment that you've that's applied at the instalment. Then there's an annual penalty on anything unpaid after a year. There's a 5% added to the total balance of the unpaid after a year.
So the actual cost of finance
The
is
cost of
like up in the
finance.
20s, so could be described as usurious,
Yes.
especially when it was at 10%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Philippo.
Oh, thanks, Simon. It's probably not quite the place, but I'm just looking for an opportunity and around the land-based rate, general rate versus capital-based. And I guess my question is, can we be reminded, obviously, you know, that government valuation based on our general rate land-based had a significant impact and kind of continues to when we've got a number of properties in our lower decile, poorer some suburbs that have got big land area, and that's, you know, significantly impacted them this year, last year, and, you know, still is. Where are we at in that consideration of and having a really good look at how we set our rates?
So are you asking a question about whether it's capital or?
Well, whether our general rate is land or capital based, and of course there's, you know, it's a really important consideration for councils, and it might be an answer to the chief
I'll pass
executive.
over to Simon.
Yeah, look, I think our general rate is on land value, and we had significant movement in the general rate last year, which causes large increase for a lot of properties. There's an item coming up shortly, which is sort of speaks a little bit to that in terms of the rates for emissions. Through the long-term plan workshops, I think we maybe in about November, December, we had a conversation with the council to suggest we should, you know, that is something that's on our sort of radar of things to look at, but something that we didn't have the time and resource to do this year because it's a fairly significant piece of work and it creates huge imbalances for all properties, so you really want to make sure you get that right.
Just might want to add to that. Thank you, Simon.
Sorry, just to add to that, I mean, Simon had it absolutely right. We're looking at bringing an item to a committee later this year to talk about a timing of a funding review, which is more than just setting the rate swap base, but the full funding review, resources required for that, and timeline.
And that would include, yeah. So.
And I think with just adding to that, with general elections, the local body elections next year, it'll be good to get it done well before that timeline.
And is there any advice, from Local Government New Zealand or Audit or anyone that's really credible on how councils should be rated, setting their general rate, or just because?
Look, I think it's up to each council to make their own decision. I think one of the challenges we had last year highlighted volatility in the land valuation. You know, when the valuation, our valuer makes a change in how they value the land, then that had big impacts in regards to rates, which we had very little time to kind of react to. But I note that I think Palmerston North is switching from land value to capital value. They're doing it on a staged approach. I read an article yesterday, again, probably hearsay, but you know, somebody was suggesting that Wellington should switch back to land value. The land value reflects the holding cost of land, so if you want to encourage subdivision and utilisation of the land, then that's probably a good approach. Capital value has its other, there's some pros and cons with each approach.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you letting that conversation play out a little bit. I think it's a really, you know, the funding review is a really important tool that we need to understand and going forward setting rates. Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Ross.
My apologies, I was trying to find a page reference and I couldn't. There's reference, I think it's in this item, that regarding the recycling and the rating is based on as per the maps, and it refers to www.wanganui.gov.nz as a website reference, and as search as I might, I couldn't find the maps that showed the recycling.
It will be there today. So
could I have a more exact reference by the end of the day than the website?
We can send out send out an email and a link to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no further questions. Right, so I will propose that we move the recommendation on the screen that the council, Whanganui District Council, sets the following rates inclusive of GST under the Local Government Act 2002 on rating units in the district for the financial year commencing on 1 July, which already commenced on 1 July 2024 and ending on 30 June 2025. So can I have a seconder? Councillor Kate. Right, so any comments on this item? Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Thank you to the team. This is really the detail that sits behind the long-term plan and all the rating that we do. I just want to make a brief comment in regard to the interest rate for late payments. If a 5% flat penalty per instalment translates as a finance rate of over 20%, imagine what 10% did. I consider it one of the highlights, really, of the decisions that I've been involved in at council, that we reduced it from 10% to 5%, because to have a finance rate of well over 30% is just inequitable, and I would resist revisiting that issue quite strongly.
Okay. Right. Right. Okay, so there are no further comments, and I just want to check that we're happy to move all of the items on the screen, because it's you've got A to D, isn't it? Go to R. Yeah. What have you got them so far? We've moved the whole lot, haven't we? Yeah. So at the moment I've got that we've moved the whole lot. I haven't seen any calls for doing anything otherwise, so we'll just do that. Yep. Great. So no further comments, so I'll put the motion on the screen from A to R under this one. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Charlie. Okay, motion is carried. Thank you. I don't think I think everyone put their hand up, so yeah. All right, fantastic. So we move to the item 8.3, continuation of rates remission for properties significantly impacted by October 2022 district valuation. So Mike, welcome.
Thank you. For context for this item, I think it's important to understand the context of it. The October 22 district valuation, as we're all aware, it used a different methodology for valuing properties to what they've used in previous valuations, which had a disproportionate impact on some for the rates of some property owners. And while the average rate for the 23-24 year was 7.9%, for many property owners, they experienced rates increase of 30, 40, 15, even beyond percentage increase. At that time, council decided to implement the rates relief that's in the item to give property owners a period of time to adjust to the rates. The rates relief was just for that 1 year. However, some elected members have since expressed a desire to extend this rates relief for another year. Officers are not opposed to extending the rates relief, and we've made a recommendation to do that. However, we've recommended that the rates relief, the amount of relief, is reduced to what it was in 23-24. We've suggested 50%, half, and that recognises that the further in time you get from the impact of the district valuation, you also need to be equitable to the other ratepayers. And so the further you get, arguably the greater amount of time you have had to adjust to that rates increase. So, as I've said, the recommendation is for council to continue with the rates remission, albeit at a lower amount of 50%. And in the options got there for option 2, which is what this one is about, if you want to alter the amount of 50%, if you want it higher or lower, then that's obviously up to elected members if you choose to do that. So I'm happy to take questions.
All right. Do we have any questions? No questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Michael.
Is there still a income set for obtaining it? Household income.
Yeah.
Labour.
So to keep this as simple as we can, we've used the exactly same criteria that we used last year, except reducing the amount by 50%, and we've also added a couple extra things. For example, the property has remained in the same ownership since the district valuation, and they haven't started, the property owner has not started the process of subdividing the property. I should have mentioned, sorry, that in the item I have put there that the rates remission is anticipated to be around about 23,500. That's not a cap on the amount, it's just what we estimate based on the applications from last year, what it could be this year.
So just to clarify, 2 people, one's a multi-millionaire, one's on the breadline, both can apply for this?
No, the criteria is the same. Sorry, I should have elaborated. Yep. The criteria was that the household income is no more than $90,000.
That's what I want to hear, yes.
Yes, sorry, and that is in the...
Awesome. Is there any scope to take this brilliant idea and keep growing it? And I mean that people who are able to pay, people who are unable to pay, get a rates remission. We did speak about this last year. Have we had any other thoughts about that?
What you are talking about is those who are under financial hardship cannot pay their rates.
Extended.
So we have in our existing policies already a provision to enable those who can't pay their rates pay their rates to apply for remission, either remission or postponement of rates.
Right, Councillor Kate.
I don't really have a question of the officer. I just wanted to foreshadow, and I should have alerted you to this before, Mr. Mayor, that I wanted to suggest that the level of remission is reduced by 25%. I know it's not a lot of money to us, but it is a lot of money to some people. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
the level of remission is reduced by 25% so essentially it's 75% of the rates rebate that was previously applied.
It's actually 75.
Yes, an amendment to the
So we'll go through this if it's lost.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. All right.
Let the chair will decide, I'm sure.
Okay, so just to carry on that one. So my what we'll do is we'll take item B separately. Given you want to foreshadow it, my suggestion is we just do an amendment. And is it not 75%, not 25?
It would be reduced by 25%. The rates remissions be calculated based on 23-24 rates of 0.75 remission for each $1 of a rates increase over $700 rates, and threshold capped at
$375.
$75.
Yeah. So we just need to get that right. So first, we just take a bit of time to get this right. So that first line is correct. So we need to change that 250 So 375, is that right?
Yes.
And the 0.50 at the end of the second line to 0.75.
Okay, got it. And zero, where it says 0.50? Yep, 75. Okay. That's read, so we've got a mover and we've got councillor Jenny seconding that.
Yeah, Andrew, if for clarity, like 25.25 on page 74 has got the expected maximum amount that would be granted will be 23,500, and there's an unallocated budget of 25,000, so that will move should this resolution go ahead.
Yep,
and I just think we should have some, if Mike can do any basic calculation on
Yeah,
that.
another 12,000.
Yeah, no, 12,000 onto that. Yeah.
12,000 onto both of
So
those.
that's a good point, councillor Philippa, thank you for that. So is there any other impacts on this amendment apart from further down in the document? It's only the provision you've got set aside for the remissions, which you've got 23,500 now. What you're suggesting is that will increase to...
We've got an unallocated budget I've got there of 25,000. There will be other remissions no doubt coming in during the individual ones. If you increase this, as got up there, the estimated cost to council would be about $35,000. So any remissions granted above a budget would then be loan funded as it was done in 23-24.
Okay.
You'd inform us of that, Mike? You bring a paper back periodically to inform?
It will be in my regular operations, update to the Operations Performance Committee, as I've done all through last year.
Great, thank you. So so we've got a mover and a seconder for that one. And we're on, sorry, we're still on question one, just forgot where we're at.
Questions.
Yep. Did that first? Okay. So, I'll move in a second. So, okay. Okay, so we're going to take item B separately. Do we have any comments on that?
We're still on questions.
So, yeah, okay. Sorry, we're on questions
Can
tonight.
I just ask the chair that members don't ask questions until they're directed by the chair? Thank you.
Yep, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, we just wanted to sort this one here out first. So any other questions of clarification around any of these before we go to item B?
So, Mr Mayor, I thought I was moving the full suite of recommendations just with the one amendment.
Okay.
Or, sorry, with the 3 amendments, I think, but...
Okay. Okay, so you're moving the whole lot. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I misunderstood that.
No,
yep.
that's fine.
Okay.
So this is alternative recommendation essentially,
yep.
because it wasn't moved and seconded.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, right, got it. Okay, so we've moved it, we've seconded it, we've now we've got any further questions? No? Okay, so we'll move to, we've got to move a seconder, so I'll move to comments.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would just like to recommend this to you. I think it's worthwhile. It was picked up. It is a little bit of a blunt tool, but it does ease the hardship in a specific number of instances and was utilised in the last financial year. I'd just also like to make the point that when I raised this with the Chief Financial Officer, he was very ready to consider it, and I didn't have to talk too hard to him about that. So I guess that says to me that another example of members of our organisation that have a heart and that actually want to help those in difficulties.
Great, thank you. Councillor Michael.
Thank you. I support this amendment and motion that Councillor Kate has raised. I also really support this entire endeavour I know it was taken as you had to do something due to the increases, but I think this has worked really well, and I have a minor motion I'll be looking to raise after this motion, Mayor Andrew, to further take this innovation to the people. So fully support this, and just a pre-warning of a minor motion coming.
Councillor Ross.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I want to specifically thank Councillor Kate, who raised this in the chamber a little while ago, and the readiness that Mike and team took this on board to provide this, because we've got the ongoing effects of, particularly in areas like Aramaho and Castlecliff, where some people were deeply impacted by the QV evaluations, and that's still flowing on as we do our rates. I wanted to make the point where it says in item 3, which has impacted a number of lower income households. I want to get it out there that, please, even though I'm a senior citizen now, this is not simply about an 88-year-old widower in their property in Castlecliff. It could be a double income family with 4 or 5 children, and they just can't meet their commitments. I just want people to be aware that this is for people right across the spectrum, and not to, in your minds, pigeonhole simply that it's a seniors matter, although seniors, only about 40% have other income other than their superannuation, their pensions to support them. I just want that broader awareness so that when people apply, they don't not apply because they're 35, married with 4 children. This is open to any resident who meets the criteria, and that criteria is excellent. Thank you very much.
Right, Councillor Philippa.
Yes, I mean, when we discussed these kind of options on our workshop prior to the long-term plan, I was more in support of smoothing out the debt and getting our rates a little bit lower for all our community. However, you know, I think this did work very well, and this really, you know, has a strong impact on helping those really struggling. It's not going to help the tenant I described in my last, in the long-term plan, you know, adoption. It's not going to help some of our really low income earning tenants who might, you know, who suddenly have their rates put up $80 and etc. Because you need to live in this, you know, this is for people who live in their own home. I'm kind of on the border of, I certainly supported the initial resolution, and my only reluctance in supporting this threshold that's a little bit higher, of up to $375, I think, is this, you know, it's unbudgeted money, and so it's going to be about another 10K, but yeah, I think it's been really effective. I don't think it's something we can do forever, but I'm leaning towards supporting this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. No, there are no further comments. What I would say is that every year it's different. I would imagine there's an accumulated effect on our community from last year to this year. Certainly, I'm sure everyone's had conversations with people in our community and around how tough it is right now, and I'd imagine that for a larger proportion it's tougher this year than it was last year. So I support this amendment, and I think for the sake of helping a few out, that's not much more in our. It's a minor amount in our overall in the overall scheme of things. So yeah, thanks, Councillor Kate, for raising this particular item. And I'll pass over to you if you've got a right of reply. No need to do that. Okay. So there's no further comments, so I'll put the motion on the screen as it's written there. All those in favour? All those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Just take a moment while Anna types it up. But Michael, did you want to just explain what
Yep.
you've...
Yep. So the minor motion is that the CE is directed to bring a paper to subsequent council meeting for ongoing rate remission strategies on based on household income. So just a paper, please. And the reason why I think Kate has raised a innovative approach here, and although I dislike progressive tax systems, 37% of our people are on minimum wage, and I think this could be an innovative approach to those who can pay more, do pay more, those who can't pay more are given a remission.
Okay, so... sorry.
That's fine, yep. So I'm a mover. Do I have a second?
I want to suggest an amendment, but I'd be happy to, and not wanting to protect my committee, but I think it should come through to strategy and policy.
I'm happy with that, yeah. That's fine.
But I think it's certainly something that we could have a think about. See if we have thought about it, but let's think about it again and see what we can do, if anything.
Yeah, look, I support any kind of innovation. We're an innovative district and town, so we can make a difference for our community. Then that's great. Yeah, so good on you. Thanks, Michael, for bringing that up. Just do we have a seconder though? Okay, Kate's
No.
been seconded. Yeah.
Yes, that's my.
Oh, household income. Household income, sorry.
Yeah.
I can't actually see the screen.
So just let me just pause for a moment. So you've got your light on. I've got that noted. So are we happy with that? Councillor Michael is the mover. Are you and Councillor Kate happy with the wording? Just want to make sure. Just finally. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Councillor Phillips, did you have a question about
Yes,
this?
thanks. While I understand the intent, I think I would want to ask our Chief Executive, considering the decisions we've just made, considering how lean this council is going to be, how are we going to understand household income? How much work is there underneath that? I think we need to understand that.
Okay, so what I'm suggesting is that, good question, but there's a paper that's been proposed to come to council. Well, I think rather than let the Chief Executive ask that on the fly, I think let's wait for a paper to come to council and give an opportunity to respond to that at the time, unless you've got anything to say. You don't need to.
Look, I think the only comment I'd make is I have no issue with receiving this direction. Happy to go away and do a bit of work and research into it. If it turns into something that's bigger than expected, I'll report back and get further direction from you. But for the time being, happy to give it a go.
Right. Councillor Josh.
It's probably answered my question to an extent, but given that in this long-term plan we just reviewed the rates remission and postponement policy, in terms of process, are we able to review that policy again immediately following the adoption of the policy that we just reviewed?
We need to consult. Through your worship, I'm getting the nod from my team, so yes.
Okay. All right. Councillor Michael, do your lights still on? No? Okay. Great. So, do we need to put that? Any comments on this item? I think we've had comments. So, all those in favour? Against? Councillor Deputy Helen and Councillor Ross. Any abstain? What's that? Okay. And Councillor Charlotte. Anyone abstaining at all? No? Okay. Great. Well, that particular amendment is carried. All right. So we move to item 8.4. This is just an update from the Wanganui Rural Community Board. Membership update. So invite. Did you want to? So the council appoints Deputy Mayor Helen Craig to the Wanganui Rural Community Board. Happy to move Councillor Philippa, Councillor Rob second. Any comments on this item? Oh, question,
a bit
sorry.
tongue-in-cheek, but does the community board want to?
I think Helen is a great champion for.
Two
I
comments.
can.
I've got two comments, if they're appropriate. One is that I thank Peter Oscom for his contribution. He was chair for pretty much the whole 3 years of the last term, was it, Peter? Well, most of it anyway. He has made a significant contribution to which we are grateful. And I'm also extremely grateful to our Deputy Mayor for stepping forward and offering to assist us in... we would like to improve our performance, and I think Helen will be of significant assistance in that goal. Thank you.
Right. All right. Yeah, and I'd just comment on that. I think Deputy Mayor Helen has got strong farming interests and passionate about farming in our district, as I am as well. And as I think as I remind people, we are a district that, and I think about 99% of our district is rural. So this is really important that we have this covered. And look, I think from what I hear, everyone's looking forward to Deputy Mayor's contribution on the board, and thank you to Councillor Peter as well for a number of years on the board. So great. All right, so no further comments, so I'll put the motion on the screen that the council appoints Deputy Mayor Helen Craig to the Wanganui Rural Community Board. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion's carried. Great.
Abstain.
It's fine. Right. Okay, next item 8.5, are council appointments to the Tramways Wanganui Trust, July 2024. There's going to be a slight amendment here.
An alternate motion, Mr Mayor.
Yep, I'll talk to Dave. I'll let our Chief Executive introduce this item before we charge ahead too much.
Through your worship, just conscious that this paper was written whilst I was away, and Anna did her best, but it's a little bit lacking in some detail. So just to fill the gaps, the current trustees have indicated their intention to resign. They've been long serving and feel like they've done their stint. Council is under the trustee able to appoint 2 of the minimum of 4 trustees, so we need to find some replacements. Myself and Andrew have been put forward as interim trustees to hold the gap, and we're currently in the process of talking with some potential permanent replacement trustees that would then come on board at a future date. The council nominations, if you approve Andrew and I today, will then go forward to the Trust's next AGM, which will likely be at the end of this month or early August, for final appointment to the actual Trust itself. I hope that makes sense and fills some of the gaps in the report. And then happy to take questions or amendments or whatever was about to rush in.
All right. So there is a slight amendment to this. So I think you're capturing that on the screen. And do you want to talk to that, Helen?
Yes, I've had many years involvement on the periphery with the Tramways Trust, and wearing the hat of Town Centre in the new portfolios, Town Centre and in Heritage. I think that, I know I would like to be, even though it might be just a temporary thing, I would really like to help that group as they manoeuvre through to the next phase. So that's why I'm putting my name forward.
Yep, I don't see an unhappy chief executive about that decision. He's got enough to do anyway, and I'm sure we all have. But thank you, Alan. Great. So any other? I assume there's no other questions here. No. So I'll put the motion on the screen that the council appoints Mayor Andrew Tripe and Deputy Mayor Councillor Helen Craig to the Tramways Wanganui Trust. I'm going to abstain from this. So is anyone happy to move? Councillor Josh and Councillor Kate to second. Any comments? I'll just comment briefly about this. I talk often about Wanganui being, its points of difference are the awa, its heritage, and its creative and arts. And so I think it's great that our Deputy Mayor is going to has put a hand up for this. It's an important part of our identity. Great. Look, there's no further comments. I'll put the motion on the screen. All those in favour? Right. Against? Motion is carried. Great. Yeah, and me too. All right. Great. Final item before we move into the publicly excluded is the 8.6 Mayor's Midterm Governance Review, adoption of the Governance Manual 2022 to 2025. I have spoken to this about right at the start of this meeting in regard to what's happening, so I'm not going to repeat that. But what I would say is that I signalled at the start of this triennium that we would make some changes to our governance structure, which was adopted early on, and I also signalled that we would there'd be a mid-term governance review, and indeed that's what this is. The reality is that when we started this process towards the end of last year, it coincided as well with a CCO review, and at the same time we've been very much focused on the long-term plan, which has taken up a significant time, and I did not want to interfere with the long-term plan process and introduce a governance structure changes and CCO changes whilst we're embedded in the LTP. I just felt that was a bit too much, and I wanted to be able to start this next year from 1 July with this governance review in place, the new portfolios and the CCO review. I feel just sensed that it was the right timing, as opposed to trying to do things mid-cycle through the LTP. So that's what kind of where we've got to. The paper speaks for itself, and I've already, as I said, already spoken to it. For me, it's there's a couple of tweaks. I've also talked about the council-controlled organisations, Economic Development Committee, and the Projects and Grants Committee being those that have been altered the most. The Projects and Grants Committee in particular, there was a view that it probably lost its way a little bit, but certainly the intent is there to have a sharper focus on and a dedicated focus on projects in particular, and I'm excited about what that could bring. So are there any questions on this item? I see Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you. Hey, I just want to note perhaps a mistake or something that's not correct on page 143, which is the Emergency Committee. Josh is listed on it, but the CCO Committee no longer exists. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and Councillor Josh.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry for picking this up so late. I thought I'd had a really good read of the policy and had noted all the changes, but I've just noticed another one. So it's under the Council-Controlled Organisations ED Committee, under Investments, to improve investments in accordance with Council policy that exceed the Chief Executive's delegations. I would have thought that given the changes that we'd already made to the CCO and Economic Development Committee about being a recommendation function rather than approval, that would need to change as well to ensure that decisions on investments sit with the whole council rather than that committee. And if I can use one example around the purchase of properties, which fall under the investment policy. I would assume that that needs to, all those sorts of decisions would need to sit with the full council rather than this committee.
It's a good point. I thought we'd made those changes as well, actually.
Yeah, so we made changes to with respect to decisions around the CCOs, but not for the investments below it.
Right. Okay. So so just if I could just go to the page.
Could I ask my question as well, because it's
Is it related?
quite related?
Okay,
yeah.
no, sure, fire away.
Okay, so 3 items have been moved out of operations and performance into the CCO committee, but I think there may be just a little bit of confusion there around investing in the context of the CCOs and borrowing and investing with regards to council, because council invests its surplus funds. That's always come to the operations and performance committee, and the terms of reference is silent on the borrowing, which has also always come to this committee. So we perhaps need to take it offline, because now's not the time to redraft, and actually have a look at those aspects, because I think there's a little bit of a confusion between what we mean by investing in investment, and we've omitted to deal with borrowing.
Okay. Thanks. Just had a quick discussion with Chief Executive. So I think your comments are relevant, and obviously this has been socialised a lot, and we've had all of us have had input into it. And the reality is that what we've discovered sitting around the table right now is that there are some tweaks to be made, and given the substantive nature of those, I think it's worth letting this lie on the table for now, and to get the wording right rather than do it now, because sometimes there's unintended consequences of doing wording on the fly. So my suggestion is to let this lie on the table. We address it very quickly. My suggestion right now is that we have a extraordinary meeting because this is our governance structure, right? So we carry on with what we've got currently. But given that I'm pretty keen to move into this quickly, I'd hope that we can make the tweaking, have an extraordinary council meeting in the next as soon as we can, and pass this sooner rather than later.
Would it not be less disruptive to pass it subject to that element?
Well, that would be my preference. Yeah. So we.
It's messy. We've got to come back anyway.
It enables the organisation.
Yeah, sure.
It'll be the end of the term before.
I'll go to Councillor Kate.
I think it's a good. I totally agree with not making decisions on the fly. However, it is very clear in the preamble of the terms of reference that it's all about governance oversight and performance monitoring, and that any decisions are recommended to council. And that's very much the thrust of what we discussed previously. It's just those, I don't want to be at odds with where you're heading with this, Andrew, but I suggest that you just pause the meeting. It's really just a few words under economic development and investments, because as Josh says, the CCO management and decision making is very clear, and has had a lot of work. It's just those last two things.
Okay.
There's also our missions in the operations and performance terms of reference though, and that does require a bit of thought.
Okay. I'll withdraw my comment, sorry.
That's right.
Been helpful.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, we're trying to get to a solution. My sense right now is that I'm always aware of unintended consequences. We change something, and it's we realise that after the event that it has a trickle down effect. So I know it's going to be a little bit of an imposition on us all to come back and pass this another time and tweak the wording, but I'd rather get it right. It's not a minor matter, this, so I'm going to let this lie on the table for now, and we'll revisit it as soon as we can.
So does that apply to the community portfolios as well?
No, it doesn't apply to the community portfolios because my view is that they're not formally part of the governance
So we
structure.
can pass those, can we?
Yes, we can. I'm just looking at which item they are.
You have to omit B.
It would be good to get them passed.
Mayor Andrew, we've got
B,
under
C.
recommendations that council notes the community portfolio terms of reference, so it's just a noting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
B and C. We could do it after aspirations and future projects, before aspirations and future projects. On Tuesdays. None of the stuff on ours isn't an offline thing. I know.
It'll all be over.
Which wouldn't be a bad thing.
They keep cancelling meetings now because they've got a new structure.
I was going to speak. Now they'll explain the whole thing on the letting it lie.
So what we're going to do, we'll let items A to D lie on the table, but I think from just talking to Anna, we can progress with the rest of these, so E and below.
With that.
All right. So where are we up to?
Well, I'm my way up to page 105.
Yes. So if we move to E, what you can see on the screen there, are there any questions in relation to those items there? See, Councillor Jenny, you've got your light on.
Nope.
Yep. Councillor Peter.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about what we're now discussing, because I was going to speak to on page 104.
Okay, so we're specifically talking about items E, what you can see on the screen there. So if your questions in relation to E and below, then that's in scope for this.
Page 86.
Okay, we'll come back to you. I'll go to you, Councillor Ross.
Oh, yeah. It's a question, and through the chair, it may go to Kate, but in item F, where it mentions Safer Wanganui, etc., are disestablished. I know I'm probably repeating myself, but when these groups are disestablished and portfolios come into play where people have these under their wing, different ones, a large allow me to rephrase. Safer Wanganui is a very large community organisation, and it receives staffing support. If this is disestablished, and this is an organisation which I feel is underrated, undervalued, and unaware to the public, if that is disestablished, I'm trying to see whether I can ask Kate. Does it physically mean that if this goes under Kate's portfolio, if she wishes to continue to run that kind of large community-based organisation, that there'll be no staffing support to do that?
Can I pick that up? Because that's exactly the essence of what my question is, and you know, we have discussed this. Just to correct what, or add to what Ross is asking. So, Safer Whanganui is a forum for various organisations to collectively meet and share information and have input into various things. Like we, in the past, we have made, Safer Whanganui has made submissions on pieces of legislation before government. So that is my question. You know, I still, you know, I've said that I can live with it as long as Safer Whanganui continues in existence. But if there is no officer support, then it will fall over, period. So I want to understand the implications of disestablishing that group and having it picked up under the portfolio system.
Yeah, so we have talked about this before, so obviously I don't have a say in what staff resourcing happens. That's the Chief Executive's role, but what I would anticipate is that Safer Whanganui will continue as it is, with staff resourcing and with basically the same forum you've got, which has been successful in the past, so I don't see.
Thank you. And I know you have been very supportive of it, so I guess then my question is to the Chief Executive. What are the implications of a disestablishment of this group and that it coming under the portfolio mechanism that has been put in place that has no staff resource?
Through your worship, I think the implication here is maybe if you don't mind, I'll start with a bit of context, because the committee structure is it's the mayor's to set. So Andrew's consulted with me as he's gone through this process. When it came to the concept of the portfolios, I've seen other councils operate in a similar way, and I support it. It's a great way of dividing up the workload and for councillors to be out in the community, and a great way to facilitate engagement. But I was clear with Andrew that we did not have the resource from an officer point of view to be supporting 13 individual elected members with individual portfolios, particularly if they were going to operate in a committee-esque kind of way. And I did suggest to Andrew that the way your role, Kate, as housing champion has operated as a good, I suppose, role model case study for how the portfolios could operate. To answer your question directly, without wanting to create an exception where we continue to provide officer support for one portfolio but not the other 12 or 12 elected members, then for consistency's sake, officer support would be withdrawn, which means either the work doesn't get done or somebody, such as the portfolio holder, elected member, would have to pick up and do the work in the absence of the staff.
And I just want to expand my question, because the same goes for positive ageing. Yeah. And there is quite a bit of work, in fact a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to facilitate those fora.
Yeah, look, there's obviously a bit of a disconnect here, because yes, with the portfolios, in the large part, the general, the direction is to not have officer support. My understanding was that with Safer Whanganui it would continue as usual though, and also with positive ageing. So we'll need to take that offline to address that, because
If that's the case, then
Yeah.
can I suggest this whole item
Yep.
lays on the table?
I've just had that to note, so it's getting a bit tricky here. So, so look,
Fantastic, thank you.
yeah. So we've tried to progress this. Let's lie on the table, move forward, and we'll continue discussions post this. So,
Can I make one point that may or may not be helpful with this, but within the terms of reference or within that item, it is noted that any staff support is under the discretion of our chief executive, and within that there surely is scope for officer support. Like, you know, if I was to bring together a youth forum and put together a really strong case, that officer support would provide significant benefit to the council. Surely there would be scope.
So look, I'm not going to put the chief executive on the spot now. So let's take this lie on the table. We'll come back and revisit. Do you want to talk to that? Okay.
I'm just saying that is within the item already.
Yeah, look, through your worship, on an individual case-by-case basis, Councillor Charlotte's absolutely right. There's always a bit of scope to, provide some support. What I'm not prepared to do, given we've just committed to an LTP with a significant increase in our work program, we've cut our resources, we're going through a process of, reducing our staff numbers to keep rates as low as we possibly can, making a commitment to be available to open-endedly to all 13 of you when I don't know what's going to come cumulatively on aggregate. I can't make that commitment. If you want officer support, then you need to give me resource to support you. Yeah. Otherwise, the answer is no, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Okay.
Andrew, can we just have clarity that, so what I understand now, kind of unfortunately, but that the whole paper will be taken off.
So look,
But
I'm going to...
Can we all, not just say for Wanganui, can we somehow just make sure we've had a discussion prior to this, that there's some other issues here that I think just we want to bring the next paper forward and get obviously get it through across the line, but can we all be involved to some extent on not just a couple of issues like Safe Wanganui?
Okay,
and
yep, that's fine. So, so Les, I don't want to keep. We've talked about this. We said it's going to lie on the table. Well, that means there's an opportunity to discuss it. So, I'm not going to have any more comments or questions on this. It's going to lie on the table. There's obviously we're coming out of an LTP process. There's been a lot on our minds. It's clear that we're not fully across this, as I thought we were, and that's fine. That is what it is. I respect that, given that we've been so full on with the long-term plan process. It has been socialised, but gosh, we've had a lot on our plates. So I'll let it lie on the table, and we'll move to the next item. Okay, so that the item 8.6, Mayor's Midterm Governance Review, adoption of the Governance Manual 22-25, is discussed to lie on the table and not be further discussed at this meeting. Councillor Jenny to second. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Okay, that's carried. All right. So now we've got a motion to exclude the public. That the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely items listed in the table below on page 133 of the agenda. Happy to move. Councillor Ross second. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Motion is carried. All right. Online as well.